All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Maps Are Dead with Mike D. These are conversations, live, unscripted. We use Clifton Strengths to talk about how to navigate a world that has run off the map. In 2020 or so, I wrote a book called Extraordinary. We talk about how the fact that maps only work if a map is going a place that you've been. So a map is great, but if it's held the wrong way, if it's not oriented right, you've got to have a way to set direction instead. And so you need an internal compass for that. So these are conversations with people about how you can develop or have moments when you've had to reach for your own compass when there may not be a right or wrong answer and no one else can tell you what to do. I am really excited about today's guest. Not only is she the chief retail officer for the very well-known consumer packaged goods company, Dr. Squatch, but she is also probably one of my absolute longest friends. Kirsten, I think I knew you from kindergarten, right? That was 5 years ago?
5 years ago, Mike. Yeah.
5.
We're so young, but no, yeah, we've known each other since kindergarten. It's amazing. So grateful to be still in touch.
Yes, after all these years, I keep wanting to say Kirsten Richardson. I'm like, no, it's Hogan. I would say to my sister Rick all the time, I'm like, she's like, who is Kirsten Richardson? I'm like, never mind, Hogan. She's been married forever. I'm like, you think it was a new thing? Kirsten Hogan. But Kirsten, thanks for talking today. We obviously know each other. One of the things, for those of you following along at home, I have her Clifton Strengths names on the board here. I write them up if you're watching. If not, listening at home. Ability, arranger, activator, belief, restorative. So it's really interesting with Kirsten. We've got a responsibility, an arranger, which is all about the hard work and the juggling, pulling these together, mixed in with belief, which is also very anchoring, intentional. Then you've got activator, which is like, are we there yet? It's a fast moving, create momentum, steer as you go, and restorative, which is the highest form of problem solving. It's one of these themes that believes nothing's too broken. We can put it back together. Just keep moving. Does sound like you a little bit?
So much.
They all kind of fit.
Yeah.
Kirsten, what I love about, I want to dive into your story and things like that, but the start off is always, one, we've known each other a very long time. We grew up in a town of 900 people in the woods.
We did.
Ultimately, to go from that small, what was our graduating class was like, 36 people?
Yeah. Yes. I was going to say 35. So you are probably closer than me, but yes.
I was just like, I tell people all the time, yes, how were you as a student? I said, I was 15th in my class.
That's all
I say. I never say the,
yeah, I was a varsity sports starter for 4 years, 3 sports. Enough said.
Triple starter.
Said.
We started from a town of like literally 900 people. I always tell people, the nearest stoplight, I think Holton might have had a stoplight at the time, but the nearest stoplight was about 40 miles away. That was the nearest McDonald's. That was the life.
Yeah. And
then I think you and I were one of 4? Randy, you, me. Did anybody else? Amy didn't go out of state, did she? No. No, we're one of the only 3 or 4 that actually went out of state to school at the university. And so you started, I remember you went from Patton to Boston College.
Yeah.
I remember telling somebody, my friend was at a party the other day and she ran into Chris O'Donnell, who happened to be at that party that one time. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. You know what, Michael, that was a very intentional choice for me.
Funny.
I remember very clearly thinking, I need to point myself in a direction that is very different from this small town because I knew I wanted something different for my life. Not that anything was wrong with the life that my family had built because it was amazing family business. I knew deep down that wasn't for me, but I knew if I stayed, that was probably what I would do. And honestly, that probably would have been fine, but I'm not sure that would have been finding my joy. And so going to BC, experiencing the city, and then getting a job very soon after that in Massachusetts, was just the right thing for me and really, really an intentional choice and one I'm so grateful that I followed through on.
When you think about, because that's what I love is that you can definitely hear that it's a belief as a theme in there, belief and responsibility, this idea of that can be good and this can be good and I can just choose something. There's something in your life that you remember, because I think a lot of research says that the first 15 years of our life, our family and the people closest to us really shape this idea that, hey, you can have an opinion. You can have your own. Does anyone stand out in your mind as somebody that shaped, hey, Kirsten, you can make up your own mind?
Yeah.
For you.
I would say, Mike, that, I would have to credit my dad. I really felt like I was brought up with this very deep rooted belief that I can do anything I want. And if I wanted to go be an astronaut, they would help me figure out a way to get there. Like that was not, I I really believed that the future was wide open for me. And that was, I still feel that. Like it's very deeply ingrained in me. And I think I get almost a little bit frustrated with people when they're like, I can't do that. And I'm like, really? You sure can.
Sure
And
they can.
so I think that for me, he was very much a proponent of that and a huge advocate of me being being the best version of myself, wherever that
Yeah.
would lead me.
Well, and so, I mean, you head out, and during those years, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. I went to Montana. You went to Mass, and you went to Quinnipiac.
Connecticut.
Is it Connecticut?
Yeah.
Connecticut,
He was not far from me.
not far from there. That's right, down the road. We had other students who went down to Southern Maine and things like that. But then I just remember the next thing I remember in your career track though was she was selling gefilte fish or something.
I was. Imagine, a small town girl from Northern Maine who perhaps we had one Jewish family in our town, the Blums.
One. Yep, I mowed their lawn.
And yeah, and I was managing the kosher category, not only for a food distributor, but a food distributor that was owned by the same company that owned Manischewitz, the largest kosher food. And I'm thinking,
Manischewitz, yeah, like
you want
Manischewitz wine, right?
me, yeah, you want me to walk into these meetings and sell and talk about,
Kosher.
how to manage your kosher food in your grocery stores? Like, okay. And that again, that belief in like, I can figure this out. I mean, this is not, I'm not curing
Yeah,
cancer. I'm selling gefilte fish. I can
yeah,
figure that out. But yes,
yeah,
that was really interesting. And my career sort of morphed from there. And it's one of those areas that I remember thinking when I was doing that, because once you get into the kosher category, there aren't many people
yeah.
that really know it deeply.
Mhm.
And so I remember thinking like, I might be managing a Passover program for the rest of my career. I need to figure out how I start to
Yeah,
broaden sort of my
yeah.
knowledge base here.
Well, what's funny is that, I mean, if I think about your story and knowing the arc of some of your story till now, is that like there are these places over and over again where it would be easy to just settle into the groove. I don't want to use the word rut, but like could have stayed in a small, could have done what everybody else did and stayed in a small
Mhm.
town or stayed in the state, or you know what, got into a category that, well, you know what, you could be an expert in this. There's a comfort in the groove, but you leave that, you go off to, but then you spend almost 19 years, was it? How long at UNFI, which
Yeah.
is, explain what UNFI is for those who don't know what that is. And 19 years is not
Yeah.
a short blip.
No. So UNFI is an acronym for United Natural Foods Incorporated. When I was buying gefilte fish, as you point out, I was working for Millbrook. They were a distributor. Millbrook was acquired by UNFI. So
Okay.
8 years of my early career was Millbrook and then got bought by UNFI. And it was an amazing experience. I mean, I did so many things there. I felt very, very blessed. I I mean, I am not a wallflower. So for me to sit back when we were going through the acquisition process and just like, where are they going to put me? How are we going to sort of be integrated? I was pretty vocal and pretty active in trying to shape how Millbrook was integrated. And that was very interesting because UNFI was very natural. We were very specialty. So we were sort of the dirty stepchild of this, like our food wasn't all clean. So it's really, really a super interesting time. And I think what was really fun about it was like you mentioned this, in my Clifton strengths, like one of the things that I found about myself through a lot of these different roles was like, I really like pushing rocks uphill. Like I find it like, give me the hardest thing that you think
Harder the better.
possible. And I'm going to prove to you that I can do it. Not just that I can do it, that it can be done. And so proving that we could bring specialty food to a natural food distributor was really high on my list of like, I'm going to do this.
I'm going to show you.
I'm going to show you and I'm going to do it really well. And you're going to pay attention. And I think that's what sort of happened. Anything that someone asked me to do, I was like, yep, I'll do it. I'll raise my hand. Somebody once told me, responsibility is not given, Kirsten, it is taken. And that has resonated so deeply with me that I'm always like, you don't have anybody to do that? I'll do it. I'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. And
Yeah.
so throughout my 19 years at UNFI, I sort of, navigated different areas and was really able to experience a lot of different areas of the business and be recognized for that sort of tenacity.
Because it opens up so many doors because you're choosing to be at the door.
Yeah.
You're choosing to be there.
Yes. And kick it down. I wasn't putting my toe in to make sure the door stayed open. I was kicking it down and making sure everybody behind me could run through it as well.
You move through the company, you're going a lot of places. UNFI grows and grows and grows to a point where it's pretty big. At some point, how do you then choose to leave that? Because that's a big stake. Because even I know a lot of people with responsibility is a pretty common theme, but it's also a very intense theme. A lot of people who have it, they will often say, "Oh, I love it when it works because I love getting things done. I like taking care of people. I love the commitment of doing a thing well." And there are times where I feel like I don't want to let people down. I can't say no. And the boundary. How have you found that you've had to go, I'm going to now choose what doors I don't want to kick down
Yeah.
or what doors I don't want to open?
What a great question. I thought I would never leave UNFI. I literally thought I don't need to go get my master's. I'm a VP. At the end of my career, I was a division president at this $24 billion company. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need to do anything more. I love it here. I love the people. Everyone knows me. It's so comfortable. And then we bought Super Value. And at the time, I was running wellness and e-commerce. And I had been doing a lot of different things, at UNFI. And one of my favorite things was this role that I had where I started this program. It had been sort of grassrooted, and I got to sort of grab it and grow it. It was called UNFI Next. And it was this program that really nurtured emerging suppliers. And I loved it. And I will never forget getting out of a meeting with Whole Foods, and I was pumped. And our CEO had called me in the middle of the meeting, and I was like, "Oh, I'll call him on the way home." I was in New Jersey, and I'm driving on the way home, and I remember him saying to me, "Kirsten," I was telling him all about this meeting, and I think we're making progress, and this is so amazing. And I'm like, "You're not sounding excited." And he's like, "Kirsten, I am, but I have an opportunity." Basically, he said, we're going to have a vacuum in our wellness business with our leadership. I need you to move over there and run. It was Select Nutrition at the time. I need you to run Select Nutrition and e-commerce. I know that, you love what you're doing. You're going to have to help to find your replacement. So have a good cry. And then let's talk tomorrow about what that looks like. And I was like, okay. And I think, I didn't ask questions. I just said, this is what the company needs me to do. I'm going to do it. So fast forward probably 2 years at this point, and I'm running wellness and e-com. It's now called UNFI Wellness. We've transitioned over and we buy Super Value. And I'm working for, I think he was the president of national sales at the time, irrelevant his title, but he was wonderful, and came to me and said, "Okay, Kirsten, we're changing some things around. The company's getting restructured." There were some kind of weird things that had happened that I wasn't super excited about, with the company, that are really irrelevant to the story. But what I really felt was he's like, "Kirsten, I think that this will be awesome. We want you to look at managing wellness for the entire company. It could be a great opportunity." And I'm thinking, right now I'm managing a pretty big book of business, and I understand that the role's going to change. But I was like, he goes, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I think that sounds terrible." And he's like, "What?" What?
You're like, "Yeah, that sucks.
And I'm
Sorry."
like, "You want me to manage Tylenol and Advil and Crest?" And I was like, "I just don't think that's who I am."
Putting dental floss in every Albertsons across the country.
And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, eventually, we came to the agreement. I'm like, he's like, "Well, what if you went back and did field sales and this and that?" And I was like, "That would be fun for 6 months, but it's not what I want to do. And I think it's time for me to make a change. And he's like, are you saying you're going to leave? And I was like, yes, yes. And it was the most freeing thing I have ever done. It was an incredibly hard decision, but what I had realized was I've lost control of my message and my joy. And I can't allow the company to just keep moving me around where they want me if that's not where I want to be. Because at the end of the day, this is my life and my career. And I have always done what everyone has asked me to do without question. And so from that day forward was this big awakening for me that said, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not sure what that is, but I am sure what it's not. And that was a really big moment for me. And so leaving UNFI was I was quite frankly shocked I did it, but it was the best decision for me personally at that time.
Was there fear involved in that? Was there a place where you suddenly simply realized, wait, this is not what I want? And the clarity of that gave you both the courage and the energy to do what you needed to do. Was there any time where you doubted it, but where you had to work through questioning it or fear? Or was it once you saw the details, you're like, wait, this is simply logical for you? Or was there fear that you had to navigate where, hey, my choice is here, but man, I really should stay because this is what people should do. I've been here for this and I could become that. How did you navigate those two things?
Yeah. There wasn't fear in terms of how I was feeling. Like there wasn't a look back and saying, well, if I stayed, there'd be all this opportunity for me. That didn't enter the equation. My husband said something to me and in terms of, the way I was not behaving, but the way I was feeling. And he said, Kirsten, you're a person who has to have joy in what you do. You put everything into your job, your career, and I can see it. It is ceasing to bring you joy. And that is not going to be good for any of us. I have 3 children, a husband, and I'm like, you know what? He's right. What am I doing? And so I would tell you that from that perspective, it was very clear. However, the fear came in, well, how am I going to earn a living? I make a really good salary and I'm just going to walk away from that. And I will tell you, the gentleman I was talking about who was so wonderful to me, his name was David Matthews, and he was just so gracious in my exit and the way that it was handled and the way it was communicated and the way they took care of me. Like I honestly, I owe him just a debt of gratitude for that, because that took away the fear in how I was going to handle what was next. And I was able to just kind of leave and really be thoughtful about, what do I want to do? I don't need to rush into anything. And quite frankly, even if they hadn't, I didn't have to rush into anything. But I think at the time, I'm like, I have had an income since I was 18 years old. I'm going to.
What do I do now? I need a job. Come on. I got to have a job.
Crazy town. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what I love, even in that, is one, I think you're absolutely right. I told you this before we even got on the call. The number of people I'm talking to right now who are not saying their jobs are terrible, but they're going, I am losing my joy. I had someone say to me last week, I sat down and told my spouse that I feel like I've lost myself to this job and I don't know how to find it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I gave it to them or how it happened, but I don't see myself anymore at work. And this idea, but so I think with one of 2 things they stand out to me that even as you tell that is, one, the importance of being surrounded by people who recognize the importance of you feeling your joy and like doing things that make you feel alive. Great to have a partner and a husband that actually goes, hey, Kirsten, just so you know, you actually need your joy and it's okay that you can go seek that.
1,000%. Yes.
And I mean, and the benefit too of, I think over time, I'm sure you've worked with people of different abilities, having someone you can tell the truth to, where you're like, when they say, well, how does that sound? And then instead of going, oh, fine. And then coming back later and saying, hey, I've changed my mind. You're like, actually, it doesn't sound, I'm going to tell you how I really feel. And that's a big deal too, right? Working for somebody you have that relationship with that has honesty involved.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't sound, and I think for leaders out there, can you be honest enough even are you able to craft honesty with their own direct reports that they would tell you the truth? That if a Kirsten in their life came to them and said, I have this opportunity, they would say, it's not what I dream, or can we do it different? But at least they would tell you versus just going, I'll just do whatever you want.
It's so true. And I think like fostering an environment that encourages trust and
Yeah.
open communication is so critical. And when you have that in a working environment with your boss or as a leader with your team, like I can't imagine having it any other way. And I think that, this old adage, as well as I do, right? People leave a boss, not a company. I would say in the case of UNFI, I left a company, not a boss.
Yeah.
And I really
But we're able to because of the boss. It's crazy.
yeah.
Gift.
And I think that, as I think about, steps I have taken, that's the most important things to me are surrounding myself with people that bring me joy, that I can continue to learn from, but that will give me that I have the courage and the opportunity to be honest and open with and do that in return.
Yeah. Yeah. That's setting. It's because, Gallup always says that according to their research, employee engagement, about 70% of all the factors that go into employee engagement are actually directly connected to the direct report supervisor. Is that the kind of the power of life and death of how emotionally engaged and healthy people are at their
Mhm.
job. It's tied to the relationship they cultivate with the person they call boss.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah.
But you step out of that and you take a leap and you don't have a job for the first time in 20 years
Yeah.
almost at that point. But you don't just go from like, hi, we were working for the largest grocery store chain distributor in the world to this little tiny company that I remember Dr. Squatch commercial of this guy showering in the forest and a dude in long hair going, and
Right.
it's like Dr. Squatch soap. I mean, they were when you joined Dr. Squatch,
Yeah.
they were doing direct to consumer
Mhm.
internet, right? And
Yeah.
they kind of gone viral with their Super Bowl ad,
Yeah.
and they started moving product. How many products were they like? What were they doing at that point? Direct to sales, kind of.
Yeah, so by the time Dr. Squatch launched a Super Bowl commercial, they were getting up in the, closer to the 100 million in D2C. But before I joined Dr. Squatch, Mike, I actually started my own little company, Sana Sano. So
Right.
I joined, two guys that I had worked closely with or collaborated with at UNFI. They were consultants and they had started their own business. And so when I left, they called right away and said, "Hey, Kirsten, come join us." And I'm like, "Yeah, not yet. I'm going to have the summer of Kirsten. And then let me talk to you when my kids go back to school." And so we started this. It was really around growth and innovation. So what I wanted to do was take companies that similar to what I had done with UNFI Next, I wanted to work with those small emerging brands and help them find their way to retail so they could do it profitably because I saw so many that came in and saw
Getting you
stars in
money,
their
sure.
eyes with Whole Foods or Stop and Shop or whomever. And not that those were bad decisions for them as an organization, but the way in which they did it. I mean, you could go bankrupt by one bad decision. And I saw that on several occasions and said, gosh, I spent 19 years like in a distributor. I wrote a lot of the policies that these guys are signing. I can help. And so started doing that. And we had a lot of small suppliers. And one of those was Dr. Squatch. And that is how I sort of got involved. And when they were getting ready to go to retail, we did a big project. I flew out to LA with a couple of folks on my team and we presented and went to dinner. And literally, Mike, the next day, the world shut down for COVID. And we were like, I don't think Dr. Squatch is going to go to retail now. Shoot. So we're going to pivot. And, we were working with like an e-commerce company that did a lot of in-store sales and things like that and ended up working with them. I was actually the interim CEO for like 18 months and we helped them exit. So we helped them sell the company to SPS Commerce. And then during that process, I was also working with Dr. Squatch. The founder had called me and said, "Hey, Kirsten, we're going to need some help going to retail. Could you come on as our like head of sales? And do it on an interim basis. We're not asking you. I know, you've got your own
Yeah.
thing going, but can you do this and I was like, oh my God, yes, please. It
Sure.
would be so much fun.
Yeah.
And that is where we started. So I started with Squatch literally before we sold the first brick of soap into retail. And I've been doing it ever since.
And you guys, now, I mean, you're not a brick of soap anymore in retail, right? Like,
No,
I
we
mean,
are
like
not.
product line, and there's a women's line, and it's and new products came out right now, right? The Invisible Glide and all this other stuff that's going on. Like, what's it like? Because it's a big shift. Well, and it's a one. Well, actually, I got a couple moves. One, you have your own company, and it's one thing to have a client that you're basically embedded in. It's another thing to go, I'm going to join the team.
Yeah.
Like, was that another choice? Because you kind of bought back your freedom of your own schedule, your own time, your own life. How did you navigate that again to go, wait, I'm not just going to, but it's not just, it's a startup. You guys were technically a startup. I mean, even though they're doing a lot of numbers, they're a startup, quite honestly.
Yeah.
How did you make that call to transition that? Because the kids, I mean, you have 3 children, you have twins, and you have a daughter, and like, that's a busy time for the kids at that age. I think your twins were in junior high at the time?
They were in high school at the time.
Cool.
So probably, and so COVID was, they were going
right
into their freshman year of high school. So yeah, this was high school. But yeah, I said no twice before I said yes. Josh, who is our CEO, who is, by the way, fantastic. He tried a couple of times and I kept saying no. And then the third time he was like, and he waited, good chunks of time in between. And he was like, Kirsten, we really want to bring this role in house. And I've got to make that decision. I would love it to be you. And I don't think like we need to move on it. And I was like, oh no, like, I don't think I can leave this group of people. Like, I love what I do and I loved having my own company. And so part of it was, I'll do it, but I do want to keep my part of my ownership in my company. And that was a tough decision. And I remember even, talking about it with my family, and my husband was concerned, like, gosh, Kirsten, the schedule you have and the freedom to make your own decisions and, and I was like, yeah, I see that and I understand it, but like, I can't imagine not having Dr. Squatch as part of my life right now. And I still think I can do both and I'm going to give it a shot. And he's like, okay, well, we're here for it. And so, yeah, but it was hard.
5 years later, 4 years later?
It'll be 5 in June. Yeah. Well, not since I joined officially. It'll be, I think it's just been 2.5, but 5 years since I started. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, because that admits, one thing that keeps coming up in your story for those of you like listening for Clifton Strengths themes along is that I love it. I hear it so many times with belief is that part of navigating their life is about finding people of character they are wanting to be around. And there's an element of, it's about the work as well, things like that, but a deciding or guiding factor that starts to shape and shift where the direction is, you just said, I don't know that I want to lead these people. I like these people. And even in the super value stuff where the parts of the story that aren't relevant, but you're like, but there's things in here that are making this less appealing. Mm-hmm. Some of these other choices are less appealing, but it's the navigating of going, yes, I could do the thing. Yes, I could be good at it. But the human beings, that type of, I want to be around that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Like that really matters.
It's so important because you spend so much time during the week in your life with these people and making decisions and collaborating. And if you aren't enjoying it or these people aren't the kind of people you want to move forward with, then probably it's not the best place for you. And I think for me, like that camaraderie is just so important. I really derive so much joy from like my interactions and meetings that I have with them. And I mean, look, not everything is a cakewalk, right? It is not. But at the end of the day, when you can, walk out of our ELT meetings and just really value like, wow, you know what? Josh really made me think about that. Or John really said something that I've got to follow up on and really figure out. Like, that's such high value for me that it makes so many things worth.
I spend, the Dauphinee group of my team, we spend time coaching founders of startups from tech to CPG and all across the pieces. I've had the opportunity a number of times to help clients or work with them who recently are in the process of hiring, going, yeah, we're growing up and we want to bring in people with experience. And so they reach for traditional industries, people that have track records, people much like yourself on track records. My experience is that it can be a real crapshoot. Sometimes they come in. I've got one client who brought in this brilliant guy, but all he could ever say was, oh, well, back at my old company, we did it like this. And back at my old company, we did like. And so on one level, these companies and these startups and these very young hyper growth companies are dealing and wanting surely these people, you know better. You're like, you've been here before, but yet it's a different world.
Yeah.
For you to ask the growth question, what was something that you had to shift into? Because I remember even when I was talking, when you first were shifting to maybe going as a staff person, going, Mike, I'm the oldest person in every room. Like, we just laughed. You're like, Mike, come hang out. We'll be the two oldest people in every room we're in. Not only are they younger, but it's a startup. What was something that you're like, you know what? I had to grow in myself. There was things that I couldn't just bring my old toolkit with me. I had to grow to join this team as excited as you were about it.
Yeah. You know what I think the biggest thing was? I'm trying to get the right word here. I think like allowing myself to be vulnerable was one of the biggest things that I had to adapt to. So it was less about like, what path do I think we need to go on? And then, dealing with the noise. It was really around like this group of people that on this leadership team are so smart and so like everyone just they're the best interest of the company is in everyone's, forefront. And when I was at UNFI, we were so large and like right, wrong, or indifferent, it was very political. There was a lot of red tape. If you made one decision, you didn't know who was, listening that was gonna, cut your legs out from underneath you. And that happened. I saw it happen. And so going into a company like Dr. Squatch that was so honest and so open, I remember an instance where our chief product officer at the time was offering me these suggestions on how to structure my team and how to do this. I was mad. Like, I was like, really, Alex? Like, and I went back at him pretty hard. And, and then we have these offsites. We have these executive offsites and they're great. We have these really like open moments of talking. And Alex and I talked about this conflict with the whole team. And what I learned from that was, you know what? This is not UNFI. This is not a large company. These are people that like, when he's offering suggestions or asking questions, like he's doing so because A, he wants to help, B, he wants to learn, he's curious. But there's no ill intent. And that for me was very, very eye-opening. I don't know if you experience this everywhere. I think I feel like Dr. Squatch has such a unique, special culture.
You have good people.
But there really isn't. And taking that away and saying, how do I become more vulnerable? And when I see a question like that, whether it's in an agenda or he's asking, like, don't get my ire up. Like, think, sit back and try to understand, like, where's this coming from? And how can I learn from this and grow and really take what I'm being asked to heart? So I would say just the learning to be vulnerable was pretty hard for me. I can be I'm very hard charging. I'm pretty
Responsible belief. Let's go get it done.
Super accountable. And yeah, so that to me, and I still struggle with it from time to time. Like just this morning, I saw something come across my Slack and I'm like all fired up and I'm like, no, Kristen, calm down. It's just not.
Probably not about you.
Go have your coffee. You do not need to respond at 6 a.m. when the West Coast is at 3 a.m. Settle down and, get back on track.
So, I mean, but I think it's a tribute and a compliment to Josh and the culture and the other senior leadership that they have invested in that space that way. Because I think what that does, one thing that I hear in that is something most of us don't do. There was a researcher named William Bridges who passed away a number of years ago, but he would talk about, we'll often change jobs, but we don't transition out of them. Is that you'll change, but you'll bring all the baggage. You'll bring the assumptions. And so before you know, in that moment, as you're talking about Alex, your brain isn't reacting to him. It's reacting to bosses 3 bosses ago, 2 bosses deep at UNFI 10 years ago, not even the last one.
Yeah. And how unfair is that, right? So unfair.
Right. And so most of us, we want change, but we don't mentally transition because it requires intention. It requires saying to Alex, it requires sitting down, having a conversation in a leadership group that says, wait, this feels utterly uncomfortable and yet it is still safe.
Yeah.
How do these things go together? And it forces you to have to reconsider. But I don't think most of us will ever, congratulations to be in a culture that lets you do that, but stepping into that growth. I love that. I think that's the biggest thing I'm hearing for people our age and in their 40s, post-millennial. We're young. We're, Gen X millennial.
Still young.
We're young. But for millennials is that like, there comes a place where I think you kind of do hit the mid part of your career where it's not about going, oh, my new roles and my future requires new growth and skills. It requires growth and self-understanding and vulnerability and the human impact element of how we show up around each other.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we've got the book smarts, you've got the experience in that space. You step in, I mean, Kirsten, your team, you guys move large numbers of things. What's the public numbers they guys talk about? Like how
So,
many units of things
yeah,
are going
so we were
globally?
purchased by Unilever
Yeah.
this year. So I don't think we're actually reporting publicly yet. So
Okay.
it's been a little while, but
Yeah.
we're quite
But I
large.
mean, like before, I mean, you guys were, I mean, just it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's like every
Yeah.
shelf.
I
But
mean,
here's the
we
thing,
talk
your
about it with
team's
our
so small.
retailers. So I
Yeah.
mean, when Unilever bought us, we were, we were over $500 million,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
yeah. So I mean, even like numbers, what I think about is your team was how big?
so little, so little, and
Is it
still little.
15? I was like,
Still
right.
little. Yeah. I mean, it was really interesting when we were looking at like org charts, but like I have 3 direct reports. I have one direct report that manages like the mass club and drug channels, one
Mhm.
that manages grocery and alt and all others, and then one direct report that manages the retail strategy team. And that was not even a thing a year and a half ago. We didn't even have a retail strategy team. So we were just this really scrappy group. I would say, gosh, Mike, I want to even say we were maybe 12 people.
As I say, you were 18. I told somebody that you had less than 18 people on
We
your
do now.
team.
So now I think we're at 19. I think we're at 19. But yeah, we're still little and we are cranking. And what these people are able to get done
Mhm.
is it blows my mind every day. I am so proud
Mm.
of everything they do. They're humble. They're just great. And I think it is. And sometimes I like literally look at the business and I'm like, other companies our size have 20 people that do this job. And I am asking my team to just stretch, but I've always been that way, right? Like I came from
Yeah.
distribution, like it's a penny profit business. Like you got to stretch everything. I remember Josh telling me like, Kirsten, I am so grateful for, your like, I can't
Understanding of
like, no, how you think about, like, really being
understanding of
frugal,
distribution,
but you
right?
can spend a little more. Like, I was
Really?
really like,
Responsibility doesn't want to spend another penny. I'm accountable for every
"No."
penny.
I'm like,
I'm gonna
I
get in
can
trouble. I spent an extra dollar on an end cap at
do
Walmart. I
8
can't
more
do that.
things with this one person. 8 more things. I am not ready yet. Like, I'm not hiring until we get the He's like, "Okay, but you maybe can be a little more fiscally
So
responsible." That was the word. He's like, "I appreciate your fiscal responsibility. However, maybe just a little stretch it a little bit."
just a little bit more there. I think, but even in the midst of all that, I think one of the things that I love is the way that I've met your team now a couple of times. I've had the opportunity to be with them, and this idea of Gallup talks in their book, It's the Manager, on how employee engagement directly correlates to customer engagement. Is that employees understanding how their performance impacts the bottom line, and also understanding there's 2 factors. They say, do you know what it is your team does well? And do you know how your product is different than the others in the marketplace? They kind of live in that a lot. When you look at the culture of Dr. Squatch, what about the culture do you feel like man, these are the keys to our engagement. Nobody's perfect. We don't expect you guys to be perfect, but you're like, here's what's been enduring that's caused one of the largest consumer goods companies in the world to acquire you this past year. Like, it clearly like, wow, there's something here.
Mhm.
When you think about the qualities of the people that work there, the values you have for the company, what really do you think creates this level of engagement that's producing so much with this scrappy little team?
Yeah. Our Squatch values, like everyone knows them, like you could rattle them off like that, right? So that has been really important. And our leaders, like when we interview people coming into the company, like I have one person on my team that I'm like, if like everyone's like, wow, they really check all the boxes. I'm like, have him interview with Tom. He's my culture.
Bar.
Yeah, but he's the one that like he's the gatekeeper of that. And if he says no, I would strongly suggest we don't hire that person. Like he just knows. And I think everyone is bold and innovative. We play to win and we're on Team Squatch. And those 3 things, while they sound simple, like there's definitely, underlying obviously messages and things underneath those, but those are so ingrained in every single person. And
Mhm.
people just like our product, like our company is fun. Like we're edgy. We go right to the
Yeah.
edge and
There's
don't
some
quite
little Sydney
believe.
Sweeney things
I
that
mean, we
happen.
dropped Sydney Sweeney's bathwater into soap
Yeah,
and sold
right.
5,000 of them. I mean, we're gonna do some pretty crazy
Alan
things.
Richardson, the rest.
And the team embraces that. They really take seriously that we have, like, we are leading culture for men's grooming in retail and online, and no one's ever done that before. And we took a category that was pretty nascent at retail in bar soap and made it fun. And it's so fun. Like, I think that the joy that the team gets around, like, we did this first, and now look at all the suppliers trying to emulate what we did. Like, I mean, it's hard because now we're trying to compete with what we've
You
built, but
yourself.
it's so gratifying. And I'm like, you guys did that. Like, you did that. You went and created this end cap that went into, you name it, Walmart, Target, Kroger, HEB, and it's cranking. Like, that's you. That's not like, that's you believing in a company and bringing something to life. And when you believe in a product and you're also having a really good time selling it, like, it's magic. It's
Yeah.
magic, and the people buy into that, which I think is amazing.
Do you watch people go in there and join the company? Have it? Is it a growth? Do you select for it, or is it something you guys grow as you grow in people as they come in? You're like, hey, we're gonna cultivate it into you. Got to grow into it. Like, how do you find when you think about employees that are joining the company?
That's a great question. So I can talk specifically on my team. Like, I tell my team and my managers that are hiring people, like, you can't teach attitude and scrappiness. You can teach how to sell soap. We can do that all day long, but you can't teach these other things. And I'm not looking for someone to go sell something. I'm looking for someone to be like a mini GM of their business and like really get a deep understanding. And that's hard. So if they're willing to do that, they have to have that inner scrappiness.
Yeah,
So I think that we really vet for that pretty deeply to make sure that we're getting in the right kind of person, and then, really train for the rest. And I think that's been pretty successful. We don't always hit it on the head, but I
sure.
think that largely we do.
Yeah. What for you when you think about, because there's two different pieces, especially with responsibility and belief, is very accountable and very dependable. I actually told somebody this story the other day that you and I were chatting, and you'd said to me off the cuff, I said, man, you're so accountable. You're like, Mike, we grew up in a world where if your curfew was 11, 10:55 meant you were 5 minutes late, because
Yeah.
we had to be home before 11 o'clock.
11 is late. 11 is late, Kirsten.
11 is late. It's like, so one, very accountable, and yet having to be very fast moving in those in that rhythm. Do you find that for yourself, you're in a new season. You guys just got acquired.
Yeah.
You're a scrappy team within a thing now,
Yeah.
which obviously the company, they obviously want you to be you. They bought you.
Yeah.
I'm around you guys enough to know that right now they're not going, hey, change, become us.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you guys are doing a lot. You guys are being you right now. What's the new challenge you feel that for yourself as you look forward and you're going, you know what? I think I want to continue to grow in these areas for me. You've got these different rhythms. You're figuring out the vulnerability question. When you look ahead on, and not necessarily problems to solve, but you're like, this is, I think, the good challenge. This is the hill I want to roll this rock up again as I look forward.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think there's personal things that I want to do, and then there's business things that I want to do. And I think, for my team, they've done, they're spectacular. Such an amazing job selling in. And we've had this really interesting like innovation curve and this hockey stick of growth. And so now the challenge is, how do we stay on the shelf, right? We've got 2 or 3 years under our
Right.
belt now. Like, we are still, I'm going to still hold our darling slot here, but we are starting to like, we hold ourselves against the big dogs when we talk about competition. And if we're going to do that, we better be able to prepare to defend our turf. So that's new for my team. So really thinking through, how do we grow and change and evolve, not only as a company, but as a team to continue to lead that. So I think about that a lot. And I think personally for me is really about kind of going back and digging back into the vault of my UNFI days, probably even when we were acquired, when Millbrook was acquired, and saying, gosh, what made us so successful then? And how do I bring that back in myself now when I did it before I was probably 29. So, mm,
Just a couple years.
yeah. So how do I rethink about like, how do I do it differently, do it better, and really think about like, how can I keep my joy, keep pushing this forward, grow the company, and do so in a way that I'm going to be personally satisfied and continue to be really fulfilled by. And I think I still am figuring that out, right? Like I think we deal with Unilever not every day, but fairly often, and I'm always trying to think about like, you know, eventually, things will change, of
Yeah,
course,
eventually, yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah,
Things are remain the same until they don't. And that's okay. As long as we can continue to move forward, how do I start to think about personal growth in that
yeah,
next phase? And that
yeah.
will be really interesting. And I think,
Kristen, I mean, you've had you've had a very interesting and successful career professionally. In fact, we overlap. I live in Minneapolis, which is the distribution, the world of Target and all the others. And one of your vendors is also a client slash friend, and they talk about your team as being the best there is in the industry. They talk like unsolicited. I was like, oh yeah, I'm talking to Kirsten from Dr. Squatch. Like, oh, her team is just the best there is. So you're respected by your peers. You've also had your own story of like your personal health you've had to navigate. There's some things and choices, and you have faced over and over again decisions that no one else can tell you what to do in. If you're telling somebody who's 20 or 25
yeah,
things that you wish you had to grow confidence and trust in yourself. You actually have a natural piece of that, right? In that belief, that natural talent. But if you're looking back, you're like, you know what? There's moments when I could have taken someone else's opinion, or I could have learned to trust finding my joy as a priority worth searching for. What are things now that you're like, these things have kept me on track? People, places, experiences, or things that they should add into their life? Because
yeah,
I hear confidence as an issue is something I think people desperately want more
yeah.
of.
Such a great question. I would tell you when I left UNFI, I had these like three things that were really sort of burning in me, and I wrote them down, and I
Mm,
have them in front of me now because I tell people this a lot, and I think they're a bit repetitive, but I think number one, don't lose control of your message. Like when you do that, like don't allow others to tell your story. Tell your own story, believe in yourself, and always just it may be a confidence issue, but just forge your path and stay on it. Believe like what you thought of, 2 years ago is probably still directionally correct. You might have to alter a little bit the way you think about it, but you still stay on that path. Just because circumstances change doesn't mean the foundation has to crack. I think the second thing was I have allowed others to set my path. I will forge my own path. Like make sure that the direction you're going isn't highly influenced in a overshadowing way by what ultimately is your goal. Don't lose sight of that, right? Stay on it, keep it, like really think about it. And I think if I had known that 20 years ago, I might have made some different decisions and maybe stood up for myself a little bit rather than
yeah,
saying yes to everything also allowed me these amazing opportunities. I mean, I got to work
straight
directly
up.
with the CEO of a, you know, multi-billion dollar company. That was irreplaceable for me. And I still am in touch with him, right? Like that's really important. And I think, I have said yes to everything without hesitation. I will vet each opportunity. I will put myself first and decide accordingly. And I think that probably is the most important thing. And I have to remind myself every once in a while, like, this is like, it is a career. It is very much a part of my life, but this is not like my end state here. Like, if I don't put myself and my health and my family
Mm.
before everything else. And doesn't mean that every decision doesn't like, gosh, I got to get to Bentonville and I'm going to miss a game. Like that might have to happen. I hate it. I do everything possible to not do that.
No, you cannot miss a game. You don't.
But so I try to always put myself first. And if I need to make changes in those small things to do that, then I do that. And that's been game changing for me. I mean,
Yeah.
game changing. And I think when I took this job at Squatch, that was one of my things with Josh was like, I have kids and they are in a really important time in their lives and I'm not missing stuff. I understand there will be moments when I have to make choices, and I'll make those, and I will always do the right thing. But there are non-negotiables for me. And just saying that out loud and making sure it was heard, that for me, if had I done that years ago, again, probably changing.
But again, belief, responsibility, arranger. I think what you're calling out a number of things that it's like, set the end at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like set what here's what I won't do. I will set this in because then I'll navigate to it. Hey guys, if we're clear on that, I'll work extra hard. I'll show up. I'll juggle. I'll be committed. You said, Josh, here's the line. And so this, like, you know what? Tell your own story. Stay on your path.
Yeah.
Put yourself at the end of that path.
Yeah.
At the end of that, like, those are key. And I really feel like for people with those themes, but I think all of us in general, it's a great place to land. You should feel, I'm incredibly proud to know you because you have fielded and created one of just a really and powerful team that, one, does great things, but likes each other, that I love talking about. But I love that my good friend is one of the best professionals I've ever met in my entire life. So coming out of our little town of not her people.
No, I feel the same. And I am so grateful to you. And I think, one of the other things I would say, Mike, is, when I have a lot of younger women come to me and say, hey, could we meet like maybe quarterly and ask me to mentor or just chat with them. And I think a lot of them are very similar to the women you were describing. Like, I just don't know what to do. The one piece of advice, and I hate to give advice because everyone's kind of different, but what I always try to say to them is, for me, and you just mentioned it, is what really works for me is knowing what I won't do, like knowing what my non-negotiables are. I'll figure, like, I still don't know what I want to do 10 years, right? I don't know what I want to do in 10 years, but I definitely know what I don't want to do. And I think that, like, to know and understand that as a younger version of me, or a young woman or man that is, so much more junior in their career, to be able to think through that, like, I think that's like so valuable.
I think that's incredibly true. I think that's as valid and as often probably more helpful way to make the world understandable, is to go, let's put in the boundaries and the guardrails first of what I won't do. And then the choices in front of me become easier to navigate in some ways.
It's so true. Yeah. I still don't know where I'm going to get to, but wow, if I can find my way around it, it's way easier. Yeah.
That's so good. Thank you so much. I'm going to, it means a lot to have you on here, and I really appreciated the time. And yeah, it's a fun conversation. I can't wait to see what happens next for the company and where you guys go. So
thank you for asking me. This is really, truly, Mike, it is my honor. I am so incredibly proud of you and the career that you have built for yourself.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful for the time and grateful that you asked me. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
For those of you following, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. We as you can tell, we love talking to each other. We talk to each other endlessly. But all the things that they say at the end of podcasts, we need those things: like, share, 4 stars, send it to your mom. Like I sent to my mom, so somebody will watch it. It's this idea of pass it along, helps us reach more people. We just do this to actually kind of offer up encouragement and obviously some advice and ideas to folks out there. Honestly, too, if you'd like to talk about your Clifton strengths or find a career or life that fits better, I created a thing called the Fit Forum. It's a free online community where all you need is your top 5 Clifton strengths. And it's a collection of people having conversations about using Clifton strengths to create a career that fits, recharge, mental health, really just actually people talking about, hey, how do you use your maximizer responsibility to navigate like this? Fit Forum, there's a link down bottom. It's free, but you got to have your top 5. So bring your top 5, sign up today, and let us know if we can help you in any way. Thanks, Kirsten. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike.
See you guys.